Hello, everyone. Welcome to another great video for ICMI 2021. And we just got done watching Brother K talking about the circumcision issue or male genital mutilation. I'm joined here with Vernon, and we've got Brother K live. How are you doing, sir?
Thank you, Chris. Great to be here, and I enjoyed watching our conversation the last hour.
Yes, I enjoy watching myself too. I feel so high and mighty. Okay, so no one got that joke, so I'm just going to move on.
I'm smiling. I'm smiling.
Okay. So, we welcome you to ask questions. Try to do it inside Zoom if you can, but we are monitoring Whova, so if you do post in there, we should be able to get them. So we're going to start off with a quick question to get things started for Brother K. Given that you've been an activist for a good portion of time, are things going better now, or is it still just a long, hard fight ahead?
There's no question that social media and the internet have made my work and our work as intactivists, human rights advocates, it's made it much more productive. And I don't want to use the word easier because it's never easy, but it's made us more effective. It's allowed us to reach more people. And the potential, there's nothing but an up potential. Back in the days where intactivism was mainly done by snail mail in the 80s and 90s. You can imagine if you had to do what Bloodstained Men is now doing just with a snail mail. So social media and the internet have definitely made our work more productive and more effective. And there's a multiplier effect too. There's an adage that the purpose of an intactivist is to make other intactivists. And that's the bottom line. When people learn the truth about the brutality and the cruelty of infant circumcision, they become intactivists. Many of them become intactivists. You need a social conscience to do it. And a social conscience is something that I think we develop a social conscience as we mature in life. You're not necessarily born with a social conscience, but it's mandatory for ethical, thoughtful adults to develop and cultivate a social conscience. And when you do, the genital mutilation of children is just an appalling crime against our sons and our daughters too.
All right, we got a question from Douglas Wallace. Does restoration actually replace the foreskin with all the pleasure, or is it more just about covering the glands?
That's from Douglas.
Yes.
Where is Douglas from? I'm just trying to get more of an idea. Does it say where he's from? Is he?
I can't say it offhand. I thought he was in like the UK or something. I'm not so sure.
In where?
He might be from the UK. Douglas, tell me if I'm wrong. But that's my guess.
I mean, it doesn't ultimately matter. I just get like a sense, getting a sense of who I'm talking to. But at any rate, Douglas, it does not duplicate or replicate or give you back the original foreskin, which is the most phenomenal structure on the male body. That's why they cut it off. I mean, that's why it was considered a sacrifice. I probably would say that it was considered a sacrifice almost along the lines of sacrificing your child to a god, throwing your child into a volcano. It was not considered a little sacrifice. It was considered a major, like, boom, here you go. Here's my son's foreskin. to whatever deity is demanding it. So you don't get back that structure, but, and I can speak, you watched the presentation, you know that I have restored, and we recorded that several months ago, and I've continued to make incredible progress. So speaking as a restored, intact, restored circumcised man, or a restored intact man, I can tell you that my enhanced sense of well-being is profound. So I would say like it's 1,000% improvement on the circumcised state. It's a major improvement. I have full coverage of my glands now. It's never cold anymore. It was given, you know, whatever the current weather conditions were, but the head of my penis was perpetually cold for one reason or another. And that's just bizarre. It's meant to be an internal organ at body temperature, and it is now for me. There are erotic benefits by having a foreskin that now moves up and down over the head of my penis. I'm not going to go into details, but I can affirm and confirm that the erotic benefits of having a restored foreskin are profound. So that's my short answer. We can go more into detail if you have any follow-ups on that. And I would like to know where you're from.
He informed us that he's from the UK.
Okay, from the UK. So unfortunately, it's mainly older men in the UK who were circumcised. I have a number of friends who are around my age or in their 60s, or some in their 50s, but many, the younger men in the UK are not circumcised. It's just a tragic thing that any man has to be circumcised. And Douglas, my heart goes out to you because this is painful information to have, but it's well worth it to restore. Well worth it.
So I once again ask everyone out there, feel free to give us some questions, because you know Brother K, he loves the questions. So ask away. While we wait for some more, I'm going to ask you a question. Now, certainly your message is that we need to stop infant circumcision altogether. It's mutilation, it's bad, it causes a lot of bad effects growing up. But say a man who was not circumcised reaches adulthood and chooses to have it done. Now, while that's a bad idea for cosmetic reasons, would you prefer that the practice be outlawed altogether, or are you accepting that maybe someone might want to have that done?
There are generally two reasons why adult men want to be circumcised. One is social pressure, and they may have suffered social pressure all their lives, or it may be related to a particular relationship at this stage of their life. I believe there's a famous case of the singer Madonna pressuring her then boyfriend to get circumcised, and he was from the UK. And then apparently she broke up with him not long after that. But so that's one of the reasons. Another reason why adult men may want to get circumcised is that as a child, they suffered scarring and infections from forced retraction. And so their foreskin has actually troubled them all their life. And that's more common than we know about because men don't talk about it. I have I don't believe I talked about forced retraction on the video interview, Chris and Vernon, that we did. But the child, when a boy is born, the foreskin of his penis is sealed. It's sealed to the head of the penis by a membrane. And a girl's the clitoral hood is sealed to the clitoris by the same kind of membrane. It's the same tissue structure. That membrane keeps the foreskin attached to the head of the penis by nature. And that is the anatomical state of the human penis at birth. And often until around puberty, that membrane gradually breaks down over time. And generally it will break down or anywhere in some kids, their foreskin becomes retractable at a few years of age. It does happen. I see, Carl, pardon me, I'm anticipating that, Vernon. So the important thing is that in a child, you never retract his foreskin because that damages it. You are breaking that natural adhesion, and it opens the boy's penis up to infections, inflammation, and scarring. So that boy will often grow up wishing that his parents had circumcised him because his foreskin has become a source of pain and anguish to him. Even though his parents left him intact, someone ripped open his foreskin. Often a doctor will do it, a nurse will do it, the doctor will tell the parent to do it. There's so much misinformation out there. And that will actually injure the child. And as he grows up, that child may come to hate his penis because of the pain that it has caused, the foreskin has caused him because of improper maltreatment. Forced retraction, that is sexual abuse of a child, no more than you would rip open a girl's vulva and rip open the clitoral hood. So those men, they become adults and they don't know what to do. They have scarring. The scarring may actually have even caused the foreskin to be attached to the head of the penis so that they can't retract it. Now, a small number of men are not retractable by nature. And from what I'm told by doctors opposing circumcision, that's not a problem. That's just the way they're born. But that's like in 1% of men. But there are, if you are an adult man who is troubled with pain or just strange foreskin problems, go to doctors opposing circumcision. And they do have different treatments for men. They call them conservative treatments, and you'll see that link on their page. DoctorsOpposingCircumcision.org has some really good advice and information for men. The bottom line is, I don't believe really any man, maybe one, I think a Finnish study found 1 in 18,000 men legitimately need a circumcision as adults. So look into other solutions before you succumb to pressure to get circumcised as an adult.
All right, since Brother K kind of pointed out, we don't usually do this, but so we'll make an exception this time. Carl Palmer asks, what is your response to those who say, I was circumcised and it isn't a big deal?
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough because that man is not willing to do the heavy lifting that it requires you to do as a man of conscience, to do the heavy moral lifting that it takes to understand that the best part of your penis was cut off. And it's easier to deny that and not even want to learn about it and to live in a state of ignorance because it is painful. I went through a lot of pain, and I know that Chris himself, as a circumcised man, has gone through a lot of pain. And Chris, you can attest to it. You go through a lot of pain, but On the positive side, that's the job of a man. We learn from our pain and we make the world a better place. And in this case, you don't want other men to go through this pain. So what do I tell that man? You're circumcised and you're fine. You have no idea how that you're fine because you don't know what you lost. Once you learn what you lost, you will be angry, as any man should be. Anger is a righteous reaction to being violated. And men who are circumcised as children have been violated in the worst, most severe way possible, unless we had a practice of just bashing kids' brains out. But in terms of what society condones, there's nothing worse you can do to a child than to cut off part of his sex organ. So go to foreskinfunction.org, FORESKINFUNCTION.org, and find out what you lost. And when you find out what you lost, you will be angry. And that's your right, and that's normal as a man for you to be angry. And then what I and many other intactivists do, we take that anger and we turn it into a force for social change and make it productive, not destructive.
So for a little clarification on that, and I was just kind of laughing to myself a little bit, you said that I experienced pain. Pain would actually be an improvement, in all honesty. The challenges that I've had with my circumcision is that I have very little feeling down there. Even during sex, there's just not that much stimulation during the process. On wearing a condom, there's absolutely no sensation whatsoever. But I've gotten a lot of social pressure on me because I don't normally ejaculate during sex. And a lot of women have made me feel guilty for it because they're like, oh, well, I must be a bad lover because I didn't get you to ejaculate. And I'm like, no, the problem is me. But then I've had some women start crying because, oh my God, I'm so horrible. And it's like, now I feel like a piece of shit because of something that was done to me so long ago.
Chris, thank you for sharing that detail. I'm really sorry to hear that. And I have to tell you that sadly, there are more men than I can name that I know who have suffered damage that severe as you're describing. And it's when a parent circumcises their son, they are rolling the dice big time. I'm sorry to hear that. I have heard, however, though, and people who just watched our recorded interview heard some of the things you said. I can tell you that some men in your situation have reported that they have gotten sensation, some level of sensation back from restoring.
Well, I'm definitely going to try that, but I didn't want to touch my penis while doing ICMI. It was just way too weird. But now that it's almost over, I can start. Vernon?
All right, so we got another one from Douglas, follow-up. I've looked at cultures which support both FGM and MGM and seen that this can be a rite of passage. Banning FGM but allowing MGM is often seen as a requirement to stop girls from becoming women. Only by banning male and female mutilation can the message be understood that it is not a feminist/sexist matter against women, but a health and human rights matter for children. Any comments on that?
Let me see. Should I be able to see that question? That was a long one. I guess that's
on by itself, not on Zoom.
Okay, well, I can try and condense it.
If you could summarize. I was trying to follow it all, and I was looking out of the corner of my eye to see if I can follow along while you're reading. I see it's not on my screen.
That's all right. I will do the heavy lifting there. So yeah.
The answer, I heard you read it, Vernon, but yeah, if you could summarize it and let me see if I can touch on his central point.
Sure. Yeah, I think his point was that banning both male and female mutilation for children, it's not just a sexism, feminism matter, but a health or human rights matter. Is that right? Did I make it any better?
The cultures that circumcise girls. Did we freeze?
No, we're fine.
No.
Okay. The cultures that circumcise girls view the circumcision of girls in exactly the same way that they view the circumcision of boys. There is no culture that circumcises girls that leaves boys alone. In other words, every culture that circumcises girls also circumcises boys. And universally, those cultures that circumcise children, all children, children of both genders, universally, they view it as the same thing. It is a practice that is designed by their own claims, or by their own explanations, is designed to keep the child's sexual desires or libido under control. So, and that's what circumcision is. It's crept into American hospitals. It morphed into medicine for a bunch of self-serving ideological reasons by American doctors. But it's the same thing. Cutting off part of the sex organ of a girl is wrong. Cutting off part of the sex organ of a boy is wrong. And right now, the people opposed to female circumcision, they scratched their heads and thought, how can we stop people from circumcising their girls? And so they thought, let's call it genital mutilation, and let's separate it from boy circumcision, because I'm thinking from the way I'm speaking from the way they think about it, because from their viewpoint, boy circumcision is 10 times more prevalent than girl circumcision around the world. For every 10 girls who are circumcised today, there will be 100 boys circumcised, and probably more than that. So there's like a 10-to-1 ratio. So boy circumcision is much more common. So the people that want to protect girls from genital mutilation said, look, there's no way we're going to stop male circumcision. No way. So let's just focus on protecting girls. The problem with that is that the people who do circumcise girls also circumcise boys. So when the human rights advocates come to them and say, look, you can't circumcise girls, you're violating their rights, they scratch their heads and they're like, what are you saying? We circumcise all our children. We circumcise our girls and our boys. And they see the hypocrisy of it. And by the way, they also know that what they do to their boys is much more severe than what they do to their girls, because the most common girl circumcision is cutting a piece off the clitoral hood about the size of a grain of rice. Many circumcised men would be grateful if when they had been circumcised, they'd only lost a part of their foreskin that was equal to the size of a grain of rice. I'd exchange that gladly. The point is, and I think I said this in our broadcast earlier, that it's not a competition of suffering, but structurally, male circumcision is infinitely more destructive than female circumcision. They're both wrong. But when you go to the people that practice female circumcision and say, look, you can't violate a girl's rights like this, in their own minds, they're thinking, well, what we do to our boys is 10 times worse, and you don't care about that. So they don't take you seriously. And that's why they're having that's why they can't stop female circumcision until they stop segregating it from boy circumcision. All children should be protected from genital mutilation.
Now, Douglas actually kind of gave a clarification to the question he just asked. I think he's talking about cultures in which FGM is basically the norm. He's saying that that according to them, to allow MGM but not FGM as a rite of passage is seen as a way to hold women back. So that was what he was talking about when he meant that banning FGM but allowing MGM is often seen as a requirement to stop girls from women in those cultures.
I'm not understanding that nuance there.
I think I can understand what he's trying to say.
If I could see it in writing, yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, definitely try to ask in Zoom to make it easier for Brother K. But I think what he's talking about is that many cultures, they base maturity on whether or not a circumcision takes place. And by banning one type of, or both types, they're saying that, well, our adolescents never become adults, and you're hurting us as a culture because this is what our culture is.
Yes, that's true. That's true. I don't know how you get around that. The cultures that circumcise girls and boys generally don't have a good track record on believing in individual rights. Individual rights are the cornerstone of intactivism and of the thinking behind genital autonomy, human rights. You have to believe in individual rights. If you don't believe in individual rights, but you believe that a child is subject to to every social norm that they're born into, then there's never any progress, and there's no. Your human rights are at the mercy of culture and ritual. So but they're right. They're right. I mean, cultures have to change, and cultures do change. I mean, the cultures that practice female circumcision today in 1,000 years are going to look, I believe, far different. Intactivism, the idea that a child has individual rights is the moral force behind intactivism, but that is not a concept that is recognized throughout the world, that a child has individual human rights. So it's painful. It's painful for a culture that doesn't recognize it. But that's for all their children, their boys and their girls.
All right, so I'm going to move on to our next question, and this comes from Philip Tanzer from Gender Parity UK. It says, can I ask you a religious question? In the Old Testament, it is very explicit that men need to be circumcised to be recognized as God's people. It's a very odd request because this can only be recognized when naked. Do you have an argument against circumcision or a version of circumcision that acknowledges and respects the rules of the Old Testament?
Yes. I think that in the Western world, which evolved out of Christianity, the Roman Empire and the Western world that evolved out of it, I think that Christianity early on fought the battle to stop circumcision. And the early Christians did away with circumcision and professed that their faith was that Jesus was the blood sacrifice to end ancient blood sacrifices. So circumcision, the genital mutilation of boys, is unchristian. There are all kinds of parts of the Old Testament that even Jewish folk reject. We don't stone people for adultery. And as to whether a loving God would actually tell someone, as the story purports, told a 99-year-old man to circumcise himself and circumcise all the males of his group. That story is widely disbelieved among rational people. That there was a deity who actually said those kinds of things. And we have other cultures, the Hindus, for example, who are not monotheistic. It's only the monotheistic religions of the Middle East that have this punitive, angry God. But If you look at the Hindus in India, for example, they have numerous gods, and I'm not aware that any of those gods demanded the sacrifice of a child's sex organ. So it's a cultural thing, and whatever your religious beliefs are, we can find a religion around the world that does not share all the same beliefs as what you believe is the word or the laws or the rules of God. So you have to balance your religious beliefs against science and rationalism, and study other religions, because there's wisdom in all the religions, including the Old Testament. Some of the Psalms of David are just absolutely profound, but there's parts of the Old Testament that are just brutal and vicious, and serious people cannot get their rules of life from inflicting cruelty on their children in the belief that some deity spoke to this goat herd and gave him that order. I don't believe it's true. I don't believe it's true. I don't believe there was such a person who heard such a thing. So you can accept what I'm telling you, or reject it. But that's my firm belief that there is no deity that ever uttered such words to a man.
Right. All right. So Cole Palmer asks, you mentioned Madonna and her ex-boyfriend, and
Yeah.
I have no doubt heard of mothers wanting their sons to be circumcised because the boy's father is circumcised and she likes the look of his penis. Why do such women think they have a say in voicing their preference?
Oh yeah, that is frustrating. That is frustrating. And the irony is those women are dupes. They are themselves dupes and victims of circumcision. And I don't say that out of sympathy for them, because they infuriate me with that argument. But ultimately, they are victims too of circumcision, and when you grow up as women in a circumcised culture do, when you grow up only seeing circumcised penises, when you see an intact penis for the first time, it can be shocking. And it works the other way around. Women who grow up in intact cultures, they are totally freaked out when they see an intact man, and women think, "Oh my God, what happened to him? What do I do with that?" But let me think. What do I think of such women? I'm going to say they should not. There should be no. Parents do not. The bottom line is parents don't have the right to order a doctor to cut off part of their child's sex organ. Period. And honestly, I blame the doctors for enabling. The doctors are the enablers. Doctors could stop this crime against our sons. They could stop it overnight if they said, "Look, we are no longer going to obey parents who ask us this criminal question. We are not here to cut off part of a healthy child's sex organ. Doctors in the rest of the world don't do it. We're going to stand up and say no." But yeah, it's unfortunate. Those women, and so many of them, they will just. We see them on the front lines, that they come out and they scream and rant and rave at us, and a lot of times it's guilt. They've circumcised their sons, and possibly their own grandsons are circumcised, and they just don't want to deal with it. They don't want to deal with the horror of it, because it's horror. You could not make a horror movie as real as circumcision is. If we had access to these circumcision chambers in the United States, if I could take in a video camera and do a real documentary on what's going on, you would see a horror greater than any horror movie you've ever seen. And that's the horror that child is experiencing. We are literally sending our newborn babies into a horror chamber.
Okay, so our next question comes from Greg H. Many times I've had a response from a woman saying, well, is just religious. It's normal, isn't it? And how we going to shift? When and how are we going to shift this misunderstanding?
Greg, that comes back to American doctors. And I'm saying American doctors because I believe if American doctors would reject circumcision, the few doctors around the world that will still do it, like I know they have a hard time finding a doctor in Australia that will circumcise a boy. But doctors aren't there to do religious surgery. That's the irony of it, is that there is supposed to be a separation of church and state in the United States, but doctors have become the acolytes of a religious surgery. And it's wrong. It's wrong on every level of human existence. If doctors were punished as they should be for what they're doing to baby boys, a doctor should go to prison for 10 years on a first offense for circumcising the baby boys. He should go to prison, period. That's for a first offense. There should be a law protecting baby boys from circumcision. A doctor cannot do religious surgery. That's why the American Academy of Pediatrics does rhetorical somersaults trying to justify circumcision on grounds other than religious, because they understand that if they admit or confess that they're doing religious surgery in hospitals, they're open to widespread lawsuits and moral condemnation. So that's why they create this little fig leaf of pseudo medical justifications. But yeah, doctors should not be doing religious surgery, period. And parents have been told that they do have the right to cut off part of their child. These parents are brainwashed. They've grown up believing that they have the right to cut off part of their child's sex organ, and doctors tell them that it's your parental right. That's what the American Academy of Pediatrics are telling parents. It's your parental right. It's a total lie. There's no parental right to cut off part of a child's sex organ. Everyone knows, everyone acknowledges that that's the case for girls. You can't take your girl into a doctor and say, "Doc, would you snip off her clitoris?" Unfortunately, intersex children are being violated. And I haven't mentioned intersex children, but there's a big movement among intersex children where children are born with ambiguous genitalia. And parents cannot actually tell whether the child is a boy or a girl. And so these doctors are accommodating parents who want to normalize the child's appearance to either cut off or reduce the size of their clitoris, to make a child look either more male or more female. But there's a huge movement among intersex individuals, and intersex individuals should definitely be protected against any kind of a surgery, because they are being damaged. They are having their testes removed. The body, people are not universally born male and female. There's a spectrum. And so there is the intersex in between male and female who can fall into either category. And doctors make a guess, is this going to be a boy or a girl? And so they cut off part of the child's genitals to accommodate the parents' desires. That's wrong, and that should be criminal too.
So I want to state that we have less than 10 minutes to go, but we still got a number of questions to go. So we'll try to get through them as quick as possible.
Okay.
But I want to ask you, Brother Cray, if you can be a little bit more concise so we can
Sure.
get through these a lot
Sure.
faster.
Yeah.
Vernon?
Shanji asks, in the United Kingdom, sexual health clinics are very poorly supported even in a free health system. How are things in the USA? If men have medical problems around their genitalia, how easy is it to get treatment?
Chris, I'll have to let you answer that one. I'm not an expert in that. I mean, I could talk about it, but I'm not an expert in that.
Well, generally, if we're talking about boys and they're having problems with their genitalia because of circumcision, a lot of doctors' responses is, well, you just got to give it time to heal. They don't take it as seriously. And this causes a lot of infant deaths because it's not taken that seriously. As far as men, I mean, it's going to depend on state, it's going to depend on the city, on what kind of response they're going to get. But one of the biggest travesties that's sort of in this realm is vasectomy. And a lot of men who might want to get a vasectomy early on because they don't want to have children, doctors will refuse to do it because either A, well, you're young, you may want to have children, or B, if they're married, we need permission from your wife to get it. And while this isn't exactly the same as circumcision, once again, it comes to the decision of a woman that affects a male's life. So our next question comes from Douglas Wallace once again. The UK has an old law that arguably makes genital mutilation illegal. Part of my intactivism was to write to companies that offer insurance to medical practitioners. I wrote to them of the increasingly likely chance to recognize MGM as willful harm, and therefore practitioners could be subject to massive lawsuits. I know one of them stopped offering policies after that. Would that work in the US?
There are ongoing campaigns to pressure insurance companies. We have a Medicaid debate going on in several states, trying to get the state legislatures to defund government funding of circumcisions. But that's a large topic, and many intactivists are working on that aspect of it to get funding, insurance funding stopped. And of course, that when you stop funding free circuit, because it's free, it's a free, parents view it as free. Well, it's free, so they take it. You know, we're sort of ingrained to, you know, you don't want to turn down, who wants to turn down something that's free? It's just really wicked. But so yeah, that's something that Intactless should continue pursuing. And thank you, Douglas, for doing that.
Well, and I want to quote just real quick that a statistic that I found that in 1999, Medicaid performed 310,000 circumcisions, costing taxpayers, adjusted for 2019, $53 million. Well, sure, they'll do it if it's free, but imagine what we could do with that $53 million if it wasn't being spent on circumcision. And that's what us taxpayers are paying.
So Sean G asks, how do you overcome the taboo that's attached to male anatomy? Do you encounter a lot of blind eye turners when you're out campaigning?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's the hard one. We go after these people on social media all the time who curse the male body, and you just have to point out that the curses that they have for normal men theoretically and realistically can and should apply to women too. So if you're saying that, you know, a man's sex organs are filthy and dirty and ugly and prone to disease, you know, you can turn that around and say to women, excuse me, but you know, you're packing all the same problems that can potentially occur in a man. So it's a question of calling out hypocrites.
Okay, so an anonymous attendee asks, I am against circumcision, but I think it can be stopped without replacing it with a ritual to replace it for religious groups. Could we talk to religious leaders to find a compromise? Something like a ritual that represents the circumcisions. What do you think about that?
Well, that's what the many Reformed Jews are doing today with the movement for what they call a Brit Shalom, a peaceful circumcision. And you can read more about that by going on Google Brit Shalom. And there's a movement underway for that. But in the United States, most circumcisions are done under the guise of medical medicine. So most circumcisions really are not overtly religious.
Now, is that the foot washing ritual?
I think Brit Shalom is an evolving ritual. I think I don't know the details of it. I don't know what they do. I think sometimes they have a party, and I don't know about the foot washing. I haven't heard that, but.
Okay. Right. Well, okay. So Carl Palmer has a question. Do doctors who circumcise argue that they can do it safer in a hospital than religious leaders can do it outside of hospitals? And he clarifies not that it's the circumcision is safe regardless of who does it or where it's done.
Well, that certainly is the argument that they're having in Europe right now, where the religious leaders are up in arms because European parliaments are under pressure to restrict circumcision to hospitals only. And the religious leaders believe that would take away their parental rights. But in the United States, you generally, doctors are not really engaging in any kind of open discussion of circumcision in the United States. So it's below the radar in the United States. Doctors are really, the cat's got their tongue. American doctors are not talking about circumcision. So you won't hear doctors offer an opinion on that in the slightest, in any way. That's basically a discussion that's happening in European cultures.
All right, so that's going to about do it for us today. I thank you to all the attendees. You asked some really great questions. If you do have any more questions, please post it into the Q&A section for Huva, and I'll invite Brother K to take a look at that and see if he can answer any of those questions. I also want to give a big thanks to Brother K for coming out today. He is such a pleasure to talk to. So easy to approach too. You think, hey, this guy, he's been out there, he's like big time, but no, he's just like us. So feel free to go up there and shake his hand. Because he deserves it.
Thank you, Chris and Vernon. Thank you for having me. Very, very enjoyable to talk to you. Very stimulating, inspiring, and let's do it again.
Absolutely.
Oh, we definitely will do it again. But what are some best ways people can find your stuff?
Go to bloodstainedmen.com. We've got an exciting year of protests coming up. If you go to bloodstainedmen.com, and you will see a drop-down tab on the right that says events. And we are going to be doing 80 protests this next year, 4 separate tours, 20 days each. It's going to be our most ambitious schedule yet. Chris, we're coming to your neck of the woods in February and March. We're going to start in Las Vegas, and we're going to go all the way to West Texas. It's going to be 20 days and then back to Las Vegas. We're going to do that 4 times next year, 4 20-day tours next year. And if you're, we're going to be in the upper Midwest in June. We're going to be in New England in August, and we're going to be in the upper South in October. You'll see all those as we schedule them. Right now, you only see the Southwest. But join Bloodstained Men on the front lines, and we need your help, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us.
And I promise you, I'm going to be there from Las Vegas to Texas, so you'll definitely have me there.
Great. We got a spot for you, Chris. No problem.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, once again. We've got Dean Hedges coming up. He's got 3 horrible stories that you want to listen to, and we'll be back in 1 hour to me and Vernon and Dean. So everyone have a good day, and thank you again, Brother K.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Vernon.
Thank you.